Are you tired of sharing the road with distracted drivers? Do you ever wish your students would get off their phones? Do you ever wish you could get off your phone? If you answered yes to any of those questions, you will love our next speaker. He just rode his bicycle 7,000 miles around the United States and raised over $40,000 to end distracted driving and promote digital wellness. His mission is called Eyes Up. His name is Ben Grannis.
My dad rode across country when the ACA had their Trans-America route in the first year in 1977, and it's sort of always been in the back of my head as something that I wanted to do. As a leader, Text Less, Live More is one of the first things that you learn about during leader training. I remember distinctly when Tom was talking about the event that happened in 2013, the gravity of the situation and what it meant not only to Merritt's family, but to all of us as leaders being in charge of these students' lives. As I became more of a cyclist since moving to Williamstown, working full-time for the Overland office, you see firsthand what the impact of any sort of distraction on the road for drivers is. So the route itself is entirely planned, so that goes from here, Cape Cod, to Seattle, sort of meandering through the country, then down the Pacific coast to San Diego, and then back east to Jacksonville, Florida. What's appealing to me is not having anything structured after the ride, so I can really be intentional about really letting myself be present in the moment, focus on what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So family is definitely one of the most important things to me, and I know to all of my immediate family members as well. I have two older sisters, and the three of us have always received unending and unwavering support from both of my parents, no matter what we've decided to do, and that gives me a lot of confidence in just going forward with the trip. I've just received so much support from friends via Instagram, texting, interacting with my website, and just seeing the excitement and support for Text Less, Live More, and just the fact that I'm going on my bike for a few months is really incredible and encouraging, and I think speaks volumes to the people that are associated with Text Less, Live More and the Overland community generally. So just like my dad did in 1977, I'm going to carry some of the Atlantic to the Pacific. The best way to get to the fundraising page is through the Eyes Up Ride website. There's a support button up there, and it'll take you to a Fundly page. You can make contributions to support Text Less, Live More there.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ben Grannis.
Thank you all. I am super excited to be here and also feel super grateful to have had Ivy's exercise just before getting on stage. So thank you, Ivy. And thank you for watching that video. It's crazy to be here just over a year later. When I started the ride, I really had no idea what I wanted to do afterwards, and throughout the course of the ride, my commitment and passion for the cause that I was riding for only grew, and I'm excited for the future, getting to share the lessons that I've learned with young people in particular. So you might be wondering why I decided to do the ride in the first place. The video kind of touched on it, but to make it more clear, I want to introduce you to Merritt Levitan. Merritt grew up just outside of Boston here, and she was an adventurous girl, loved tennis, loved to go skiing in the winter, picked up cycling towards the end of her high school career. She graduated from high school in 2013 and was heading to Colgate College that fall. And before she started studying at Colgate, she wanted to ride her bike across the country. So she did that. And this is her group on the first day of their ride in South Carolina at the Atlantic Ocean. They're about to start their 6-week journey west to Santa Monica. 2 weeks after this photo was taken, Merritt was killed by a driver who was texting for 4 seconds. So Merritt is the reason why I am here, and the mission extends so much further beyond distracted driving. There's a lot of statistics about phone use, particularly in the distracted driving world, and I just want to draw your attention to these three. Number one, 25% of all crashes in the United States involve cell phones. 2, 9 people every day are killed in crashes involving distracted drivers. These are completely avoidable and unnecessary deaths. And number 3, 5 years of life is the amount of time that the average American will spend on social media. And I'm here to help you and help the whole country and the whole world do something about it. And I believe that living eyes up and the 3 simple steps associated with living eyes up will cause those problems to just melt away. And the 3 steps are look, listen, live. So before we go further, I want to hear you all. We're going to practice throughout the session. How are we going to live moving forward? It's the big words. One more time, please. Eyes up, baby. So eyes up. Look, we live in a spectacularly beautiful country. And I believe the best way to see the beauty, not only in our country, but anywhere you are, is by putting that phone down and actually going and experiencing it. You don't have to ride your bike for 3 months in a row. You don't have to do something extreme. You just have to get out there and experience it firsthand. A lot of people ask me, where was my favorite place to ride? It's a great question. You might be thinking, oh, you know, that sunset on Lake Erie in Ohio, that must be it. Or maybe it was winding through the golden aspens in Colorado. Or maybe it was riding alongside 2,000-year-old trees. Can you think of that? 2,000-year-old trees in the redwoods. Or crossing the Golden Gate Bridge, the iconic landmark in San Francisco. Everyone loves a good Denny's breakfast. You know, arriving in that parking lot, knowing you're going to get the omelet combo, substituting in pancakes for toast at no additional charge at most locations. No, and I know that there are some natives of this state here. My favorite place was actually Kansas. And you might be thinking, Kansas? This? It's flat? There's nothing there? You drive through it to get to the Rockies. No, Kansas is not flat. Take a look at this beautifully detailed illustration. It's actually a ramp. And each day on a bike going west, you gain about 1,000 feet of elevation. You are on your way to the Rockies, and you got to get there somehow. There's geographic diversity. There's lakes and cliffs. This was taken in Kansas, believe it or not. There's fossils. Kansas used to be the bottom of the ocean. That's crazy. The thing that stood out the most to me is that Kansas has the kindest people I have ever met. You meet a lot of really kind people when you're out in the elements on a bike, but Kansas, by far, the most kind people. Therese and Conrad, I was camping at a campground towards the end of the season. They invited me over for pie and ice cream as I was about to go to bed. I almost didn't say yes because I was so tired, but they told me about how they go to this state park just 30 minutes from their house every single year for vacation. They don't go far because they're living eyes up. They know what's right in front of them and how good it is. Janet and Orvin have hosted hundreds of cyclists doing similar trips to what I did over the years. And they take every single one out to a buffet breakfast in town. They go at least 3 times a week. And
They share stories about their house that they lived in for 30 years, the story of their town, and how much they love it. And finally, Charlie and Kath took me to see that lake that I showed you in Kansas, and they just love where they live. At night, Charlie took me outside, he pointed to the sky, and he said, "Ben, you're never gonna see stars like you do in Kansas." And he was so right. I've never seen stars as bright as he has, or as they are in Kansas. You probably don't see as many stars in Boston because of all of the population. And getting out there and seeing it, that's living eyes up. You don't have to be in Kansas, you don't have to be in anywhere specific in the world to appreciate the beauty around you. It's right in front of you. You don't have to leave where you are. Where you live, where you're from is beautiful. Put the phone down and you'll understand why. Listen, we all were asked when we were younger what we wanted to be when we grew up. Anyone remember? Maybe you've forgotten. Regardless, there's a pretty small chance that what you said when you were 5 years old, 6 years old, is actually what you became. And that's for a number of different reasons. A big reason why we lose touch with that voice inside, what our heart is telling us, is because of external factors, people at school, teachers, friends telling us, you should do this, you can't do that. The same thing happened to me. I wanted to be an architect when I grew up, maybe go into photography, something like that, be a park ranger. I thought maybe, my dad would tell stories from his bike trip. Maybe riding a bike across the country would be cool, but what about the gap in the resume? There's no way that could happen. And by listening to that heart and reconnecting to it, you find that it doesn't matter what other people say, and you can sort of shed what's going on. And whenever you have a dream, there's this tug of war between desire and doubt, and so often, and just like many people who have that dream growing up, desire gets snuffed out by doubt, by external factors, things like that. And to reconnect with that inner voice, you have to be gentle. And a dream in its infancy is fragile. And so you got to be careful with who you share that dream with. Because if you tell the wrong person, it could be extinguished immediately and your hopes could be vanished. So the first person that I told about my bike trip was my good friend Connor. He's an avid cyclist, and I knew no matter what I told him, he would support it. So this was actually the first text that I sent, the first communication that I had about this bike trip back in January of last year. And Connor's response was simple. It was not an essay saying, "Oh, you got this, no problem." It was all I needed to know that I was on the right track because I was connecting with that inner voice. With every dream, there's a challenge. And challenges, are initially scary, and we tend to want to avoid them. Staying on the comfortable track is so attractive. But challenges make the rewards so much stronger. And we've heard about that with the track athletes that we've heard speak earlier today. My first big hurdle was going over Wolf Creek Pass in Utah. This was early October, but an unusually early winter storm came, and I was going up over 9,000 feet on my bike. And at the top, it was about 10 degrees, snow blowing, the road freezing over. I put on every single piece of clothing that I had in preparation for a 15-mile descent to get towards Park City. I quickly realized that when you're not moving and it's that cold, you get cold. Soon my hands and feet were both completely numb, and I was shivering uncontrollably, and I was concerned that I would no longer be able to use the brakes on my bike because my hands were so cold. So risk management brain kicked into gear, and I pulled over. I flagged down the first truck that drove by, and by some miracle, they stopped. And inside was this amazingly kind Native American family on their way to Salt Lake City. The warmest truck I've ever been in. For 30 minutes, as we went down the pass, I got to peek into their life and be part of their experience while they became part of mine. And at first, I was frustrated and disappointed that I had to spend 15 miles off of the bike in order to get a ride out of the elements. And then I stepped back and said, wait a minute, this was one of the coolest things that's ever happened to me. And so the important lesson here is to embrace the support when you're pursuing anything. Even if you're doing something that you don't necessarily want to be doing, embrace it. It will become part of the experience and make it that much richer. And even more so when you are doing something that you want to do, the help will sort of come naturally. Just like those people, I mean, they didn't naturally just come there, but it feels almost effortless, and that's the takeaway. So don't dismiss them, embrace them. Now I'm going to tell you all how to live. Doesn't that sound great? No, you can't tell people how to live. There's no clear roadmap for life, and that's kind of what makes it exciting. It can be scary, for sure, but that's what makes it exciting. So I like to view the 3 words not as isolated steps, but more as a math equation. We have any math teachers here? There's got to be a few, right? Okay. So when you do the first 2 steps, live sort of happens as a natural byproduct. You put the phone down, you channel in what's inside, you're doing what you love to do. It's sort of like how people refer to flow state. That's living, and that's what happens when you shed all of those extra additives. So I'll leave you with some steps to start the process. Three easy, some are easy, simple takeaways. Number 1, this one's easy and doable, and there's no excuses. 9 people every day are killed unnecessarily in this country. So turn on do not disturb while driving, driving focus, however you know it as. Put the phone down when you're driving. Nothing is that important. I'll be at the table all day tomorrow, hopefully helping some of you get this activated. It's also on my website. It's really easy, and there's no excuses. 2, let's start practicing intermittent phone fasting. What's that? There's always a new trend in food, right? There's no food involved. It involves putting your phone down for just small chunks at regular intervals, hence the name. So this could be something small. I'm not asking you to delete Instagram, throw your phone in the ocean. It's just not realistic, and it's not helpful. So find something that you love. Maybe it's walking your dog, maybe it's going on a short jog, or maybe it's even just reading a book on your couch or reading a magazine. But try putting your phone away. Put it on the charger, put it in the drawer in your kitchen. Just put it somewhere so you're physically separated, because it's so infrequent that we have actual physical separation from our phones. Then when you come back to your phone, maybe it's 15 minutes later at first, then maybe it's an hour, or maybe even 12 hours. Notice how you feel. Take that second to observe how you feel, just like we did after doing the tapping. Make note of that, and then repeat it, because you will feel different. Maybe you'll feel anxious at first. That's okay, and that's normal. It's just getting a taste of how it feels and continuing it that will see noticeable change. Finally, 3, remember that dream you had. Something that you want to do that you've put off for whatever reason, write it down, put it someplace where you'll see it regularly, make it your phone wallpaper, tape it to your mirror in your bathroom, read it every day, and make it happen. And just to close, know we're running short on time, I want to introduce you to one person that I met in Ohio who I think embodies what it means to live eyes up. Early September, I was still new to bike touring. This is last September, not this year. I didn't plan where I was going to stay for the night, and it quickly became late in the afternoon. I was tired, ready to be done, but had no place to stay. I was in the middle of the fields of Ohio, absolutely beautiful, not a lot of housing options. Across the street from where I stopped to contemplate my issue, I spotted a house with a nice vertical welcome sign on the front porch. So I decided to do something that I hadn't ever done before. I put my bike against a tree, I knocked on the door, out comes Joe with a beer in hand. I told him what was going on and that I would like to camp in his yard, and he said, "I don't give a hoot." Not in that exact phrasing. We keep it clean here. So I camped in his yard. Later that evening, I was about ready to go to bed, much like the pie and ice cream came at kind of a funny time. Joe comes out. He says, "Ben, let's go watch the sunset." So we go out by where the welcome sign was, overlooking the fields that he maintains year-round, and we watch the sunset. He does that every single day, and I know that because I'm friends with him on Snapchat, and he posts it every single day. The beautiful thing is that he loves it. And we could spend those simple moments throughout our days looking at what other people are doing on social media for 5 years over the course of our lives. Or we could do something simple like looking at the sunset and appreciating what's right in front of us. How are we going to live, people? Thank you. I will be here all day tomorrow answering questions, and I would love to come share more stories and information at a school near you. Thank you.